So this month, we are focusing in on empowerment, self-empowerment, and accountability. So we'll just do like a brief recap of some things that have been shared throughout the month, mashallah. It kind of wanting to ground us in just a definition, understanding of, what is empowerment. So empowerment is the ability to take control of your own life and not allowing others to control your life for you or dictate the course and the direction of your life, right? So stepping into your alignment, your authenticity and who you are as an individual and the way that God has uniquely made you, and understanding your purpose and being in alignment with that, and having the courage to lean into that and be in the driver's seat. And so we also talked about how a strong component of this is self-awareness, right? In order to be able to take control over something, take control over your own life and make the decisions that are best for you and in alignment with your journey, your purpose, you have to be able to have a certain amount of self-awareness. And last week, Dr. Willa Rothman had reviewed 6 steps to developing that personal empowerment. And the 6 steps were identifying a goal that's focused on power, increasing your knowledge, increasing your self-efficacy and your belief in yourself, increasing skills and competence, and taking action and continuing to take action, not giving up when things get hard, not falling into complete despair, but continuing to take action and move forward. And then lastly, assessing your impact. So when we talk about accountability and self-empowerment and where that has a role into place, we have to address, that self-awareness piece. So when we are wanting to take accountability in our own lives, we have to assess and really think about, okay, what are my areas of growth and what are my strengths? So in that process, we have to kind of look, kind of turn the mirror, like face the mirror, essentially, not outward, but inward. Okay. And really reflect on and think about, okay, so what are some of my strengths? Where are the areas that I shine in? And then thinking about, okay, what are some of my areas of growth? Where are some of the areas where I know, not where other people tell me, but where I know, where I have, maybe paid attention to patterns of behavior, maybe patterns of behavior that don't serve me, or areas where I just recognize, this isn't a strength of mine, and that's okay, right? But having that self-awareness so that we're operating from a realistic standpoint and not that of one that is fantastical, right? We're not operating from ideals or this high expectations or standards, right? But from a very real, like meeting yourself where you're at. Okay. So let's take a moment to just think about that, to write out some of our strengths and write out some of our areas of growth. Just to get us thinking about how we can approach taking accountability in any particular area of our life, and how we can utilize the 6 steps of developing that personal empowerment. So let's take 5 minutes to just jot down, draw a line down the middle of your paper. On one side, write strengths, and on the left side, write areas of growth. So you have your strengths on the right side, your areas of growth on the left side. And if it's helpful to kind of narrow it down so it's not so vague, at the top in the center, just write maybe a specific area in your life where you want to take more accountability, where you want to have more control. So we'll just have some group discussion. We'll do this popcorn style. And you can type in the chat box, or you can unmute and just share briefly. We'll start with strengths. Okay, and you can just share briefly in one word, one or 2 words, a strength of yours. So feel free to unmute. You can share out. You can also type in the chat box. What was an identified strength? MashaAllah. Compassion for others. Beautiful. Alhamdulillah. What else? What are some other strengths? Resilience. Yes, mashallah. Asking for help. Yes, alhamdulillah. Let's take one more. Forgiving and loving. Beautiful, mashallah. And now we'll transition to the other side of that. What are some areas of growth? What are some things that we can identify in ourselves? Yes, asking for help, right? So that we can have some, for some folks, it is an identified strength. And for other folks, it's like, this is an area where I want to grow, right? MashaAllah. Self-compassion. Yes. So having compassion for others, right? But then the area where sometimes we need to develop and grow in is compassion for ourselves, pouring into ourselves, right? Not pouring from an empty vessel, maybe, right? Yes, emotional independence, overthinking, yeah, mashallah. Seeking less validation seeking, yeah. So validating ourselves, right? MashaAllah. Yes, self-discipline for sure. Any trends that we're noticing when we talk about the strengths? Curious what was that process like? The process of identifying the strengths. Let's start there. What was that process like? How was it different from identifying the areas of growth? Was that an easy process or a harder process? Identifying, and this is open for anyone to jump in on. Was it easier to identify the areas of growth, or was it easier to identify the strengths, or vice versa? Yeah, and I think that that's a theme. Other folks are chiming in the chat that, like, you know, when it comes to thinking about the areas of growth, it's like rapid fire, like boom, boom, boom. These are all the areas where I want to do better or be better or, you know, grow or whatever it is, right? Mashallah, our sister says, I did notice though that when we aren't grateful for our good qualities and take them for granted, sometimes we lose those things too. So definitely important to recognize and protect them. Mashallah, absolutely. So since we're kind of noticing a theme here, right, that it takes a little bit of time to build up that momentum around identifying our strengths, right? It takes some time for us to, you know, reflect on what are the things that I shine in, right? Or that I do well, or maybe that I'm consistent at, right? Which is so interesting because when we think about taking accountability, we have to take accountability for the blessings, the gifts, right? That gratitude piece is so important, that it's like acknowledging what the way in which Allah has made you and created you, right? So there can be created like an imbalance when we are able to rapid fire, you know, all the areas where we want to grow, and maybe not as much in the areas of strength, right? Because it's like that mirror again, right? That what you feed grows. So which one are you feeding more of, right? Are you feeding and putting fuel and time and energy and reflection and setting those goals, increasing your knowledge, right? Applying those 6 steps to the strengths, right? So alhamdulillah, we're going to take some time to break into small groups, pairs, since we have a smaller group today, and reflect on the strengths and the areas of growth. So you'll share with your partner, if you selected a specific topic that you put at the top of your sheet. So for example, if you chose career and you said, you know, these are in my career, my goal is to reach this level, this position, or maybe it's, I want to make this amount of money, you know, or whatever it is, right? Then you're looking at, okay, these are the strengths. This is what I bring to the table, right? And these are the areas where I want to grow in to be able to also contribute towards those strengths, so that the strengths and areas of growth are working together, right? That it's not like this or that. It's all a part of you, right? But so that it's like, okay, how can I find that balance between them? Because oftentimes we do find that like an area of strength that we might have, which is like compassion for others, that on the other end of that, the area of growth is compassion for self. So these two things can work together, right? They don't have to be, you know, a house divided. They could be a house united, coming together to like work together, right? So in your pair, when you are talking about, you know, whatever the topic is, and then the different strengths and areas of growth, think about where are the areas that you can take accountability, and maybe even what's getting in the way. So we will break into groups and we will come back at 20 after. MashaAllah, welcome back. We appreciate you all. So we'll just open this up for discussion. We went into our groups and just reflecting on and talking about our strengths and our areas of growth, and what that was like, identifying our strengths versus identifying our areas of growth, what was hard, what was easy, and then what gets in the way. What are some of the barriers that keep us from, like really holding ourselves accountable in those 6 steps even of, personal development and moving forward with our strengths and moving forward with our areas of growth. So trying to understand, okay, what are the needs that are trying to be communicated, and like, are you asking of me, do you need me to show up in a way where just to listen or to advise? And then also thinking about what are our needs, right? Do I have the bandwidth or the capacity? Because then that impacts my personal accountability and my ability to show up in a way that is in alignment and where I can have a certain amount of control, right? Coming back to that self-empowerment, like having a certain amount of control in how this is going to impact the course of my life, right? And then thinking about like, okay, well, what are some of the things that work? Well, maybe some of the things that work is just journaling, after certain interactions, to kind of think about it more, giving yourself some time and space, right, to process and going at a pace that is realistic for you. MashaAllah. Because some people will, have a preference in like language choice. So, some people do preference like strength and weakness, right? Oftentimes, especially in when we're having these group conversations, I tend to preference areas of growth because sometimes there is stigma around weakness that is internalized. And it's like, if I identify weakness, then it means that therefore I am weak, right? And that's not the case. So it's important to be able to really understand the distinction between the two, that like a weakness is an opportunity, right? It's an opportunity to recognize something within yourself that maybe is not serving you. So that then you have more of an opportunity to grow, right? And to come closer to the things that do serve you, which are your strengths, right? And how can you utilize your strengths to get you closer to your goals around self-empowerment, right? And strengthening and being able to feel and be in control of the things that you can actually control in the course of your life, right? You're reflecting on that, your whole face lights up, right? That belief in ourselves really can push us forward in staying in alignment with our goals for self-accountability, right? And that was even in the steps that Dr. Abdullah Rahman had went over on, developing personal empowerment, like having that belief in yourself, increasing your self-efficacy, right? So that can really be a huge turning point in our goals towards holding ourselves accountable and moving forward, right? And that helps us in taking the steps of accountability the things that we can consider in taking accountability. And so part of that is educating yourself, but at a balanced pace. So this really helps us to not go to that extreme end of analysis paralysis, where we become paralyzed in thinking and processing over and over about the things the areas where we want to grow, so much so that it actually can hold us back from being able to move forward, right? And continuing to take necessary action to meet our goals, right? So having that balance, that as we are having the courage, right, to look within and look at the strengths and to fully stand in that, and also look at the areas where we want to grow and fully stand in that too, and recognizing our humanity in both, right? That we can go at a pace that is balanced and where we're not putting an unnecessary amount of pressure, right? And then thinking about the courage to be your authentic self. That is an act of accountability. Having the courage to be your most authentic self and owning, owning your areas of growth and owning your strengths fully. And then recognizing the opportunities that come with owning your strengths, right? And owning your areas of growth. There are going to be so many opportunities that unfold by virtue of you standing fully in that. And, it can be easy to kind of like withdraw, right? Especially when we are having to address maybe something that does not serve us anymore, that we can just let go of. And we can do that with grace, or it can be this like tug of war, right? And we get to choose. And that's the piece of self-empowerment and accountability, where it's like taking control, taking that power back, that we have choice, right? And letting go is a part of the process, part of the choice, right? And it's the opportunities that can come with that when we're willing to have the courage to let go of what no longer serves us and leaning further into the things that do. And part of that process is acknowledging. So this comes back to like that self-awareness piece, acknowledging any triggers that may arise, right? Acknowledging maybe any trigger points or any, kind of like sensitivities. What is getting in the way? When we talked about in our breakouts, the things that maybe get in the way or that can become barriers towards us leaning more into our strengths or identifying our areas of growth and taking action, right? Thinking about what gets in the way. Sometimes what keeps us from taking the leap, right? And trusting the process is there are some sensitive points. There are some areas of maybe tension, right? Maybe we're not ready to let go. Or maybe we need to do some more work in believing in ourselves so that we can step into some of our strengths, right? So this can kind of guide us and bring us back to remembering our purpose and the way in which the Creator created us, right? Rumi says, you are not a drop in the ocean, you are an ocean in a drop, right? So really remembering that Allah made us Khalifas of the earth, right? This planet. So we have this beautiful role and trust between us and Allah. And when we step into our full empowered selves and take accountability for that, then we're putting our trust in that we were created in this way, and that each of us have these strengths and these areas that may test us along the way, right? But that we are fully capable of stepping into it. So that sometimes we just need to regain that, have those reminders of self-belief, that we believe that we are capable and able, right? And that we are worthy of this trust that has been imparted on us, right? So acknowledging and identifying, okay, what are maybe some of the sensitive areas? Where are some of the triggers that get in the way that like hold me back? So for example, like we were talking about, if you're wanting to move forward in your career and you want to make more money, for whatever reasons, your goal, and you're identifying, that your strengths are, well, I'm really good at budgeting and managing finances and things like that. And I'm very reliable in the workplace. But then maybe my area of growth is Maybe my area of growth is I need to work on my relationship with my supervisor, or I need to work on my communication skills with my team, right? And that those things are going to contribute to ultimately me being able to grow in my position or my role. Maybe I'll get more responsibility, and with the responsibility and tasks as I connect with my team, or, that's going to increase my income over time, whatever it is, right? But really paying attention and kind of connecting these dots to the personal reflective areas, right? And then the big picture goal. And then to kind of bring it back to kind of like a lighter pace of coming back to that balance, choosing gratitude and trusting the process, right? So recognizing again that along with this, we have opportunities, right? We have choice, and opportunities will expand and evolve as we expand and evolve. But we have to be willing to be able to identify them and show up, right? And keep taking action over and over. But we also get to choose gratitude that, alhamdulillah, I've been afforded this opportunity to invest in myself. These are the deposits that we're making into ourselves, when we're taking accountability and we're moving forward, believing in yourself, having the courage to do this self-work, right? And then trusting the process along the way, that I'm going to get to the place that I seek. It's like what you seek is seeking you. So that when you set that goal, it's like, I'm going to get to that point. I just need to, little by little, go at my own pace with consistency and discipline, right? Just chip away, right? Alhamdulillah. What are some other thoughts or things that that we can be applying to give us the courage to keep taking action, right? Beyond maybe the week where it's like, okay, I wrote down my goals, I've got these 6 steps, but what's gonna catapult us to keep taking action, giving us the courage to continue, even after, maybe you fall down, getting back up again and again, right? Absolutely. Someone said believing in yourself really is such a huge step. Absolutely. So what gives us the courage to keep going? What gives us the courage to keep holding ourselves accountable? Oftentimes we can get into that cycle, right? Of maybe thinking of the worst case scenario, right? But then what's on the other side? What's the best case scenario? Right. And again, it goes back to what we were talking about before around what you feed grows. So where are you putting your attention to? Where's your energy and your focus at? So again, it's also identifying that it's that acceptance piece of, well, I can't necessarily my thoughts are my thoughts, they're gonna come and go in waves, right? So not necessarily trying to change that altogether, but what can I add? Well, maybe I can add more of a practice of gratitude and mindfulness and acceptance even, right? Or self-compassion that okay, maybe in this moment this is hard, but it's not gonna be hard forever, right? So I can have compassion and grace for myself through this, so that way I can still get back up and keep trying. That's courage, right? MashaAllah. What else keeps us moving forward? Yes, I used to think that being ready for the worst was best, but all it did was add more stress, right? And that can hold us back even in our goals, our big picture goals. We identify what the goal is, um, and that can hold us back because then our focus shifts. It can shift from increasing in the knowledge around the specific goal that we have to then it's like taking a detour. But then you have to kind of come back, right? So it's like taking that detour that kind of gets us off course because we're so hyper focused on the worst case scenario. But then the steps kind of give us a guide, like back to, okay, well, let me come back to the initial goal. What's the information that I need? And increasing in our knowledge is really powerful because that's something that we can control, right? That's something that we can find resources. And it's something that is asked of us to continue to increase in our knowledge so that we can kind of stay in alignment, right? Yes, this is really Farida, mashallah, if you want to speak more to your comment around, all the energy that sometimes we put into worrying about the worst case scenario. Even if that happens, it doesn't necessarily lessen the whatever our fear was, right? It doesn't necessarily lessen the pain or challenge that comes with that happening, right? So then on top of focusing on, that accountability and growing and moving forward, we still have to deal with, just the human aspect of that. Maybe there's going to be pain when we let go, or maybe there's going to be consequences, or, but it doesn't lessen that. It's still there, right? Or our why moves us forward in our resilience and trust in Allah, right? That like we can only do as much as we can do, right? But then like leaving the rest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's in his hands. Why not go for it? Try that thing that, has been on your mind for 2-3 years. That's 2-3 years that you could have, taken a step toward it, right? So alhamdulillah, it's a really beautiful way to kind of ground us as we close, is just remembering like ultimately putting our trust, in Allah in the process while continuing to move forward, and staying connected to our why, which is why the goal setting is so important. First identifying, where are we at now? Where do we want to be? And what do we need to get there? Maybe more self-belief, right? Or continuing to take action, some courage, gaining knowledge so that we can feel competent in whatever we're moving towards, right? So alhamdulillah. MashaAllah. As we close, I just want to show gratitude for everyone and the ways that everyone has shown up and fully participating, MashaAllah, and all of your insight that, definitely benefits all of us, MashaAllah. So may you all be rewarded. And we'll end with Al-Asr. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. صدق الله. الحمد لله.